Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and next to me is the doctor himself.
Oh shit! Fuck.
It goes like this.
Here's what was happening. I was like, I obviously know how to say hello in Klingon. I absolutely do not. And I just, and that's all. It came to
You could have just said anything in Klingon.
Nope. Got stuck.
One person may have known, but everybody else.
I could have said kapla or something,
kapla.
but nope. Instead, I just shit. Fuck.
You decided to be cool.
Yep.
Well, each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you, including listeners like you. Today we are joined by our surrogate daddy and resident Star Trek expert, Dave Rossi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Dave. Apologies and welcome.
I apologize too. I mean, unless you're into it or something.
I think hello in Klingon is Nukne.
Oh, I mean, this is something I could have done before we started recording.
You'll be saying that again.
Yeah. Oh. Dave, thank you so much for making the time. We're going to be talking about, Trek in DC today.
Yeah.
You're the person most connected, who knows the most about Star Trek. We're Star Trek nerds, but
remains to be seen.
But you lived it. I think you've only been on the main feed on Docmus before. So for those who might not be familiar, do you want to give a little background on your connection to Star Trek?
Well, I came out to California from Buffalo, New York, and through a very crazy set of circumstances, ended up working on Star Trek: The Next Generation as a production assistant, and then spent the next 14 years working on all the subsequent shows through Star Trek Enterprise, as I ended up as an associate producer on the show.
So cool. So neat. I mean, from all your time there, obviously there's lots of different roles, and you clearly ran the gamut, from PA and then kind of rising up through the ranks. What's something that stands out as
the worst job?
No. I was going to say, what's something that stands out as did you have a moment where you're like, I can't believe I get to do this here, as someone who's a fan of Star Trek?
I don't know if there was necessarily a job. I mean, I can tell you moments like when I first walked onto the bridge of the Enterprise D.
Sure.
I mean, that's obviously you're just like, holy shit. I mean, it was, that was pretty staggering. And then after Enterprise ended, I worked on the remastered Star Trek: The Original Series effort. I was a producer on that. And I'd have to say that was because Star Trek: The Original Series is my Star Trek that I grew up with. And so to be able to work on that series and come up with different ways to see the Enterprise and work on visual effects and the battle sequences and that was probably the thing where I said, I cannot believe that I'm doing this.
That's awesome. And then obviously you're also a DC fan. Are those two things connected? Like loving superheroes and liking sci-fi, or liking Trek and liking superheroes? Are they connected at all? Or is there something that you see in one that you enjoy in the other?
I think it's all the idea of these kind of fantasy worlds, these amazing worlds. I know a lot of people who know a lot about Star Trek, a lot more than I do, especially on the side of production. Right. Like, who was the second assistant director of this, and how did they do this, and how and that kind of stuff. The thing that I've always been most passionate about is the universe itself.
Yeah,
and getting into that. And so I think it's the same with comics. You read comics and you're there. You're in that story, and I think that's the connective tissue for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're the same way. I mean, I know some things, but I don't remember when an issue came out. I always get years wrong. I mess up who the creators were. But I remember
everybody fucking reminds us.
And all you jerks.
That's great.
Um, before we dive in, I just have to ask the question.
Uh-oh.
Are you watching Picard? No spoilers, obviously, for those listening. But are you watching Picard, the TNG reunion season?
I'm 3 episodes in.
Nice. Yeah,
and I'm enjoying it.
I'm so happy. I'm on cloud nine about it. I mean, especially after us going down to Fan Expo and seeing them, and yeah, I'm having the time of my life.
How did you feel about that last reveal?
I'm into it.
Yeah, I mean, of course you are. I was like, this is it, but all right.
I'm into it because that's always a question mark for me. Is like, but then what?
Sure.
So like, I dig it. Those who know.
Yeah.
That was pretty shocking. That was a pretty shocking reveal. And this morning I actually had a work meeting, and Terry Metalis was on the call, and he and I know each other. We go way back because we haven't talked in years, but he was an assistant to Brandon Braga on Star Trek Next Generation. And so he saw me on the call. We saw each other, and it was like, oh my God, how are you? How are you? And he said, but we have to go grab lunch. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So I'm going to try and wring every piece of information out of him that I can about.
I love
where
that.
he got the ideas
that really
is where it came from.
I gotta say, every time we chat, I love like talking about Star Trek with you. You're such a nice guy. It's so much fun to talk. And then I'm also overcome by this like incandescent white hot jealousy of your life and what you've done and the people you know and the stories you have. And I'm just like, God damn it. Why is it him?
I feel the same way. You get to sit next to Richard.
I mean, you say that about me too, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's a different kind of incandescence.
A different kind of white hot.
Yeah. Well, that's the only kind of hot we could be.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, wait, hold on.
So this week, we're talking this kind of weird, I'm going to use a Star Trek word here, weird nexus between DC and Star Trek. And some of it is that DC published Star Trek comics for a number of years, on and off, because Wildstorm also did for a little bit. And part of it is that there are these like intercompany crossovers in the way that you get like Batman Ninja Turtles as a special kind of mini series. There have been Star Trek crossover series with DC. We know Dave, we know Star Trek, we know DC. I thought it would be a fun thing to talk about. I will say off the bat, it's very clear to me that very few people actually have encountered too much of the Trek DC stuff. We have a couple of questions about those things, but I think mostly it's going to be a fun geek out episode of like what ifs and how those universes work.
Do they cross over that much though?
No, other than some of those little series or whatever.
And does the Star Trek universe exist in some sort of multiverse within DC?
I mean, I guess technically because there's infinite Earths.
Yes.
And yes.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into some of these questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First, we're going over to Facebook.
Going to the face and the book. Going to the Facebook.
First question comes from Ryan Putney,
who
asks, wow, don't remember if you guys mentioned if these events existed before. Have you actually read/owned any of these crossover comics? And if so, which did you enjoy the most?
You could read that question really threateningly. Have you actually read?
Have you actually read or owned?
Dave, we'll start with you. What's your experience with like the Trek comics or that side of things?
Honestly, limited experience. The most experience I have with
what
them.
What the fuck is he doing on here?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor. The most experience I have with them is the Marvel side, because Paramount was licensing, obviously, Star Trek to Marvel, and one of my jobs at that time was to kind of shepherd those from the Star Trek side to make sure they weren't doing anything that was stepping on the toes of production or anything we were doing there.
So this would have been after the first time DC had the rights, because Marvel had them first under very tight kind of specific, like they couldn't use stuff from the original series. They could only use like the motion picture
right.
as the basis. And then DC got the rights, which were relatively wide open. And DC's stuff took place like between Trek movies. Like there's stories.
TNG though, yeah.
No. This is like the original. It took place like between Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock, and then Search for Spock came out, and they had to like retcon stuff they had done, and then they did stuff between Search for Spock and Voyage Home, and then they had to retcon that when the movie came out. And then Marvel gets the rights back after that, so it must have been during that time.
That's right. We did the first one I worked on was a Next Generation X-Men crossover.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I like it.
Hell yeah.
I'm glad I stopped myself. I was about to try and sing both the Next Gen theme and the
yeah.
It's been a long road.
Oh man.
Like the one that has lyrics. I'm like, hold on.
Love it. I mean, I've got Eagle Moss does these like collected editions, hardcover things. They do them of all sorts of DC stories and trades, and I've got a bunch of those. And I have a bunch of different Star Trek ones from different eras, from the IDW stuff, from Marvel era, and I have the first arc of the DC, like the very first arc of DC, doing Trek, which is called the Wormhole something, but it takes place like right after Wrath of Khan. So Spock's not in it. Savick is in it. They introduce a couple of kind of like lower decks sort of characters. The Klingons are in it. It's very interesting though. It's that era, you know, with the crimson uniforms.
Oh, sure, yeah. Everything I have is TNG. That's DC.
Yeah, and then I have read a couple of the crossovers. I've got one that's Star Trek and the Legion of Superheroes, which I think is pretty interesting. There's multiple Star Trek Green Lantern ones, and actually, I think that's
those are based on the JJ universe, right?
Those are Kelvin timeline crossovers,
really?
Yeah, which is kind of interesting and sort of neat to see how those work. But yeah, I mean, I've got those. I've read them, but I mean, there's not a ton, and there's a relatively long series of these comics. Like the first DC one is like 50 something issues. They did at least 69 issues of that Next Gen series because I have issue 69 signed by Riker, which feels like a joke in a joke. Very nice. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of comics, but they are relatively underknown. Have you, other than knowing they exist because I just got one signed at Fan Expo, have you read or encountered any of these Trek ones?
No, I was just trying to see what I actually had, if I had anything like that. And I think largely everything I have is like the volume stuff. Oh, I have the Next Generation Doctor Who Assimilation, which is an IDW thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so and that's pretty rad.
Assimilate.
Yeah. Nice.
I've read some of the IDW original series stuff, and of course, I read all the old Gold Key. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah.
Those crazy covers. But
I love Gold Key comics. I mean, that's one of my favorite things when we go to cons too, is seeing all those old ones. Yeah. Love those.
Yeah, really fun. But I've never read a lot of the crossover stuff.
It's kind of a shame because there's some really good. The IDW stuff's great. There's some really good Trek comics and some good stuff that fills in like bits of time. I know now with these new series we're going and filling in more stuff, but like there was a great sort of run there where the Kelvin timeline movie, the first one, had come out, and then they were filling in the prime timeline the ramifications of the destruction of Romulus. You know, we've got an altered version of that now with the shows, and that's like the canon because they're the shows. Right. But there's a part of me that's like, I don't usually get like this, but I'm a little stung that the comics didn't have more of an influence, because there's some really cool stories. It would have been neat to see them, you know, like where characters ended up and who was doing what, and you know.
I think that's the history of comics with media, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, well, do we want to go to the next question?
Let's do it.
All right, from Braden Ketty, who asks, of the Enterprise captains, Kirk, Picard, and Archer, Which DC villains would be the most interesting to pit against them? Doesn't necessarily have to be any cosmic related antagonist. You could even have the Condiment King screwing with Picard by putting relish in his cup of Earl Grey.
My God.
How dare they?
So the three, well, I mean, there's more. Even if going by the shows,
Yes,
we could throw Pike in there if we want.
Yeah.
Of the captains of the Enterprise, if we think of their personalities, maybe what's a good like DC villain antagonist? If we're pitched to make a crossover comic, what's a good match for some of these captains?
Absolutely, because you got to talk about what is sort of each captain's thing too. I think first.
Yeah,
I think Picard has already fought Mixus Pitlick.
See, that's a very Q-esque.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
For Kirk, I don't know. What do you guys think?
What makes Kirk a captain, right? Which is like he's brash, he's like fearless. These are the things that make him sort of like he's not necessarily the most brainy captain.
I mean, to me, and maybe it's partly why those later Kelvin crossovers work. I think there's like a Hal Jordan and Kirk.
Very similar,
as type of person. Maybe not the most responsible, but they're also not like burnouts. You know what I mean? Like there's maybe Sinestro then for Kirk. Sure. I mean they've literally done it. But,
sure.
But maybe that's because it's the right one to do.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to get Dave's take on Archer because you probably are the closest to Captain Archer because you worked on Enterprise. What do you think's at the core of Archer as a captain? What would make a good DC villain against him?
Well, I think Archer is the altruistic explorer. I mean, he's the carrying on his dad's legacy of the Warp 5 engine to get out there and be our first contact. He represents the best of us at that time.
Right.
So I'm trying to think of who a good villain would be for Archer as a foil.
Do we think that Archer is what's his personality type? Does he have the brashness, or is he more of the strategic?
He's pretty stern. I wouldn't call him like a brilliant strategist or anything. I think it's the do you know if he's supposed to be the best of us at that time and exploring and trying to go out with an open hand, then maybe someone like a character a little more xenophobic or something like a Zod or something like that might be interesting. Someone who's trying to shut down the idea of cooperation or coexistence or things like that would be a good villain.
Yeah.
And I'd say Lex Luthor for Pike because he'd be jealous of the hair. And I know nothing about that. I'm certainly not jealous of Pike's hair.
No. You know who I would love to see either Kirk or Picard for different reasons go up against?
Okay.
Lobo.
Oh yeah.
I think
I could see Kirk go and Lobo. I think that would be interesting.
I think I like Picard just because it's so out of left field.
Sure.
But I think Kirk makes sense.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think it'd also be fun to see some kind of sci-fi creepy thing like the Yellow Lantern who steals the kids.
Crib.
Yeah. I
Lex
think that
Picard would be dope though, because
they're
both
bald.
Well, I mean, one.
Yeah, Patrick's going to play them both.
That's just a great cover. But also, just I think the intellect against intellect, strategy against strategy,
Yeah, I see. I get what you're saying. I also think Ocean Master would be a good let's imagine there's some sort of terrestrial adventure and I'm only thinking of this because a thing I like in Aquaman comics is when there is this kind of Game of Thronesy political thing, and Picard is the diplomat, right? So to have him navigate some sort of tense chess kind of thing would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just
What
threw
about
fucking
maybe-
the Joker at Archer.
What about somebody like Per Degaton? You know,
Ooh, yeah, time traveling
somebody
villain.
wants to get a little taste of an alternate reality's future tech and all of that kind of stuff. That might be kind of.
I mean, you could have worked Per Degaton into season 4 of Enterprise.
That's right.
They go right back in time, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next question. Coming to us from Scott Newcomer.
All right.
Old listener, newcomer,
Yeah.
who asks, don't.
I held myself back. Did you feel how tense that was?
I know. You also must be drinking.
I am, yeah.
All right. 2 questions. Do you think the Borg could assimilate a Kryptonian living on Earth? And second question, how do you think Cyborg would handle them?
Right. So a Borg question. So question number 1. Could the Borg assimilate the Kryptonian?
I don't think so.
No. Just based on the basis of the impenetrable skin, or
Yeah, I don't know how you'd get, but then again, I mean, look, they're a collective that has millions of minds working on a problem.
Yeah.
They could probably get some like
kryptonite,
some fucking rock, and get through there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be interested in, even if like you get through the impenetrable skin thing, Kryptonian physiology is so weird, and especially under our sun, I'd be curious if the like Borg nanites.
See, I think they could do
We'd
it.
even have it, because also keep in mind, I mean, this is such a nerdy thing to say. Keep in mind.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now you're asking.
We're talking about the Borg of 300 years earlier, because he'd have to be in the 21st century with Superman.
You're not wrong. That's a very good thing.
Like, they're a less advanced Borg if we go by that logic.
Yeah, but do the Borg get advanced enough that they can do time travel?
Yeah, that's first contact.
Well, then there you go.
Right.
Yeah, and this would also be. I would look at it as an alternate. It's an alternate dimension. It's an alternate reality for the Borg, right? They live in Picard's time, but like they encountered species. Now I'm drawing a blank on their name.
8472.
8472.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I get laid. That's what I do.
Nerd.
I only get laid when I hyper evolve into a weird salamander.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, I think they could. I think that they
Interesting.
They evolve so quickly to whatever the problem they're approached with, and it's like fucking get through his skin, kryptonite. Like,
right.
Boom. They can figure that out.
Now here's my one kind of counterpoint to this. Okay. We see, in Star Trek, the Borg are obviously, they're enhanced, they're stronger. Yeah. We see, you can take them out with a phaser a couple of times before they adapt and their shields modulate. But like, we never just. Anytime we've seen brute force used on the Borg, it works really well. Like, Data just snaps necks, Worf like throws them. Like, Superman could kick the shit out of the Borg.
He could probably wipe through a lot until they realize that they need to adjust to deal with that. I think that's a problem. If he can like first round pass wipe through them all, he's fine. But this is always that problem. It's the same thing with fucking Rick
and you have to get all of them.
Yeah. Like, it's the same thing, like with other like adjustment fucking bots that they've had to deal with in DC, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's true. Okay, second question, Dave. We've already, we've sort of said that, maybe they could handle Superman if they, get their ducks in order.
Yeah.
What about Cyborg? This is a character who, like, he has just like fleshy human bits.
Nice.
But the question, I guess, is, do we think apocalyptian tech, like New Genesis tech, is more advanced?
Trump Borg
is more advanced than whatever the collective has amassed.
Ooh.
What's your take?
That's a tricky question. I mean, I think that Cyborg would hold out for a long time, and it could go the other way. Could Cyborg start readjusting the Borg?
Yeah.
Well, I think the question is like when is the technology from like mother boxes and stuff from? Like,
well, it's not really a when, it's a where. It's the fourth world is like in the sphere of the gods. It's like a different part of the multiverse.
Because it's not just base tech, right? Like,
well,
it's
and a mother box has some of the source in it. Like, it's kind of sentient. I think that you might actually have an interesting scenario where, like, maybe the Borg can't assimilate the
how
tech.
Is this not already a comic?
But maybe they can assimilate the human side of Cyborg, because that's part of it, right? He's not just a machine. So then you get like
fighting against itself.
You get like a Borg cyborg, you know, like
cyborg Borg,
or like the same sort of thing, even with like Blue Beetle with Jaime Reyes, right? You'd have the Scarab, and like then the Borg get Jaime, but then there'd be this sort of clash of tech.
It's like a Black Lantern-y kind of thing. Yeah.
I think they would have a tough time assimilating.
God, I want that. Yeah, that's just a great fucking series now.
Thank you.
That was the question that did it.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'd have a hard time. I think Dave's right that Cyborg's tech could probably like do the opposite, like assimilate the collective, you know?
God, or at least implant some kind of virus.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if Janeway from like a mere 30 years in the future could do it, Cyborg can do it.
Fuck
yeah, totally.
All right, let's leave Facebook and head on over to Twitter.
Twitter. By the way, I've never felt cooler in my life.
In what way?
Because I just talk about Star Trek.
That makes you feel cool.
Yes.
Cool. Next question. Coming from the Multiverse of Marvel podcast, who asks, who's the Riker of the DC universe?
We got to answer a question first, and that is, what does it mean to be Riker? Dave?
Riker is...
Oxford Dictionary describes Riker.
He's cocky, but in a charming way. He's a great leader. He is a ladies' man. He is. I have an answer for this. Well, I guess he's Hal Jordan.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe slightly reductive, but he is sort of described as like the Kirk of Next Gen, right? But he's in the commander position, not the captain position, which is part of the interesting dynamic of that show.
I've got two answers for this.
Okay, you think you know who the Riker of DC is?
It's one of two people.
Okay,
it's either Green Arrow.
Ooh, Ollie, interesting.
Or Booster.
Interesting. You know
who Booster truly is, not who he portrays to be, I think.
I like where your head's at. And I guess there's some evidence to it. I guess I just don't think of Riker as that insecure.
Yeah, that's
I mean, you're not wrong. Exactly. And also, I think like new Riker is really feeding into our brains right now.
Sure. Yeah, sorry. I missed that. What was that you just?
I was going to say the exact same thing. I think Booster is not as confident as Riker. I think he probably has a lot of self-doubt, which is why he came back to look cool.
I do think that and I'm also very much thinking of like who Booster is now more than I think who he initially started out as.
Sure.
Which is like this person who's like knows they're doing good and having to kind of fake the like celebrity sort of side of it. But what I think the thing is I also do think that we all may be slightly feeding it, because I think this new Riker we're getting is a lot different than like the original Riker.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that's the problem.
Old Riker has seen some shit.
Like old and age Riker has like definitely is a lot more like confident and sure-footed and like
younger. Interesting. So Dave says Hal Jordan, which tracks if we go with the Kirk of Next Gen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Carol Ferris will always be his love, just like Deanna Troi will always be Riker's love.
Sure.
But he does play the field. I suppose that could also be, I mean, if you wanted to gender bend a little, Black Canary.
Ooh.
See that?
I don't hate that.
That I'm into.
Yeah.
I mean, in more than one way.
Is it?
God, I'd love to
see Black Canary and Rise.
No, I was gonna say I'd love to see Riker get on a motorcycle the way he gets on a chair.
He does it over the handlebars. He goes backwards.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's an interesting point, though, too. You know, if you, it's not an exact 1-to-1, but if you put Green Arrow, the sort of bleeding heart lefty, in the sort of Troy position as being like a bit more, let's say, empathetic or whatever, which is not necessarily a given with Ollie, but just generally speaking, in a real kind of global sense, then, you know, Riker is kind of a Black Canary, totally on board with the mission, dedicated, knowledgeable, skilled, a little bit, you know, a little bit rough and tumble, a little bit, you know, a little bit sexy, likes, you know, like I think, God, I can't believe that that's the right answer. I like it.
I do kind of like it.
I'm into it.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Let's do it.
From Chris Chan, our favorite religious representative, who asks, we're a starship to discover DC's Earth Zero. What would a Starfleet's assessment of it be? Would it invite Earth Zero to join the United Federation of Planets?
Ooh, Dave. Dave's face said it all there. Yeah. Would Prime Earth make it into the Federation?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know that the Federation has any members that are from alternate realities.
Sure.
Is the first one. So I don't know where that purview goes, but I think, boy, I don't know. The threat level. I mean, if they were there just observing for a week, you know, and, you know, Bizarro attacks Metropolis and Sinestro's there and Mongol, and I think they might have to back off.
Well, have we ever encountered that in Trek in general, where they get to a planet that it's like advanced enough, but like also like too fucking much? Like,
I mean, here's the thing: like, they've turned down Federation entry for way less. I mean, first of all, I think there is a provision that you need a single world government to join the Federation. Really? So Earth at this time, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Black Adam's got Kondak. We have all the nations we have now. There's all these little kind of petty squabbles. On that grounds, I think we're not getting in.
Yeah.
But then also, like, you know, they turned down I don't know what the planet's called, but Farpoint Station, they're torturing that animal to power their city, and they're like, you cannot be in the Federation.
Yeah, sorry.
That's torturing one animal. That's not like all of the shit that happens on Earth, you know. That's not to say that it's super cut and dry, because, you know, DS9 gets into the gray area. They really want Bajor in there bad, but is Bajor really ready for it? And it's like, not really. So it's not a black and white thing, but I think they'd be hard pressed to make a good case that they're Federation worthy.
Yeah, because they'd also then have access to all Federation worlds, and you're right. I think that that Earth is certainly not united. And so that makes it I think that makes it a very tough call right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's leave Twitter and head on over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them. I should have been doing Riker trombone there. Remember when they think that Geordi and Rolara die and Riker immediately plays trombone at their wake?
Yes. Any fucking opportunity.
He's just like, so they're dead, huh?
Here's a little something I wrote.
It's not even like somber. He's just full playing like swing music.
I do like I think it was like or New Orleans like jazz.
Yeah.
I do like the idea that he's like been trying to do that for like every event. Like he's like
I like that idea, but add the wrinkle of Geordi has been the one vetoing it. Yeah. He's like, he can't stop me now.
No. I'm gonna do it over his fucking grave. All right, let's go to Instagram. First question comes from Ben Forsh Stewart.
Oh, lock the door if you're on the bridge.
Holy shit! Who's the captain now, dog?
Oh.
And Ben Forstward asks, they've probably never interacted before, but who gets more action, Kirk or Dick Grayson? Captain Kirk or Dick Grayson? Robin.
I mean, here's the thing. Kirk's got a big reputation, and I'm not expecting a literal answer here, Dave, but how many times does Kirk actually hook up in the original series? Is this one of those things that's sort of like ballooned in our heads?
That's absolutely true. He's not the,
philanderer.
He's not. That's right. He's not the philanderer everybody makes him out to be.
Right.
Where does that come from?
I mean, I guess we see it a couple of times.
But I want actual evidence. What's the evidence?
I think there was a comedian who was trying to make the joke that Kirk slept with a green woman. He'll sleep with anyone. He slept with a green woman.
Right.
Which he hasn't, but for the joke, and then that just propagated. It just kind of took off.
Is that what it is? Because they don't ever obviously they never show him like.
Can you believe this 60s syndicated TV show didn't show Kirk fuck?
Yeah. He didn't bust or nothing. But he doesn't, right? Like, they never see him, like, wake up with a lady or, like...
He has that kiss with Uhura, but I'm pretty sure that's, like, under duress or whatever.
Yeah, and look, there's times where he has slept with a woman, and, the way they frame it in the show is he's sitting on the side of the bed putting his boots on.
Yeah.
But how many times did that happen?
Probably.
Not many.
I would say that probably happened fewer times than the number of known paramours there are of Dick Grayson.
Yeah. Which is funny because I think the actuality
for Kirk.
Like Kirk has the vibe that he fucks, and I think that's part of the reason.
Right.
But Grayson, I think he is hot and so can get laid, but he doesn't feel like the type that was just like throwing it around.
Oh man, you got to read more comics. He should work for Public Works the way he's laying pipe around Gotham City.
Yeah, he may as well be at a fucking Hawaiian resort the amount he's getting laid.
Is he an engineer? Because he's railing all the time.
Dick Layson.
Dick Layson, that's right. Thank you, Dave. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitively the answer is Dick Grayson.
Well, there you go.
Probably gets laid more than Kirk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Captain's log. Nice.
All right. Does anybody know Captain's log now? Is there enough of information that we can figure out what it is right now?
Yes, because during TNG they set up that it started with a 4, and then the number after that was like the season. So season 1 is like 4-1 blah blah blah. There's like 5 digits or whatever, point something. So then season 7 of TNG is 4-7 blah 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 point whatever. So then you just keep adding years, and it's been 36. So whatever 41 plus 36 is 77, I guess, is where we're at, like 77 something dot whatever, I guess technically.
Is that right?
Sure.
You're the man now, dog.
Oh. I'll be in my ready room.
All right, do we want to go to the next question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
But the room is never ready for what I do in it.
Oh my God. All right, next question from Instagram. And the last question from Instagram comes from copy_801, who asks, the DC Star Trek comics are some of the most well-written stories in Star Trek comics. Why do you think Star Trek comics don't get the love they so desperately deserve?
I mean, that's a tough question. I do love those DC ones. They're awesome. And
you and I both have some. Are you more original or TNG?
I have more of the original.
Yeah, because I have more TNG. I've got basically all of Volume 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have more of the original stuff. I think part of what makes that DC one so good is they're like we were saying, their licensing was broader. They could use concepts and characters and stuff from the series. Marvel wasn't allowed to do that initially. So they could do all of that. Plus, they were in this interesting period. Wrath of Khan was such a hit. People were like into it. The stories are cool. The Klingons are there, you know.
Yeah.
I think that series benefits a lot from that. But I mean, Dave, as someone who's worked on Star Trek or adjacent to Star Trek for a long time, do you see like do you have any sort of insight on like why is there a big drop off between people being into it as a TV show or movie franchise versus other media? You know, like I think Star Trek video games don't do that well. I think, you know, like
no one's really ever hit it.
Like why is there such a drop off?
Well, I don't think it's a real secret sauce. I think it's just that TV and film casts a wider net.
Yeah.
You know, it's more accessible. You know, TV, you just have to sit in your chair and turn it on, where you know, asking people to go to a comic book store, first of all, it's just, you know, it just doesn't work that way. So but again, I think, as I said earlier, I think it's a real shame that they don't go to source material that exists in comics, because some of it is so rich and so interesting, and it's with great character development. But you know, you bring people onto a TV show or a movie and they want to put their stamp on it. It's not about you know, taking something that exists and trying to adapt it to the screen. It's about, you know, they want to do their own thing. And I think that's part of it.
I wonder too if there's a bit of a trap in the comics medium to overemphasize action, which
I was going to say,
not to bring the classic Star Trek versus Star Wars thing into this, but you know, Trek has action. Trek is exciting. I'm not trying to say that, but it is also a little more cerebral. Most of the problems they solve are by thinking, not by shooting.
Yep.
You know, like that's the Trek thing. And I wonder if that sensibility is difficult already when we've removed movement. You know, we're dealing with still images in a comic. And I wonder if there's like an impulse to over action certain things. Like if you look at that TNG series, like the way they draw them, even like they're ripped to shit.
Yeah.
Picard looks huge, you know, like it's like all of the learnings of superhero comics are applied to this thing that's generally a little quieter, you know.
100%. I think what's interesting is I think that Star Trek works so well like through like literary means, like more than a lot of other series. And I think it's because, like, unlike Star Wars, which I think it's like requires so much more action, I think that like Star Trek is its best sometimes when you're not even seeing visuals. I think it's why some of the novels are some of the best Star Trek that's out there, is like in these like long form novels. And I find that it's easy, and there's also a lot of Star Trek comics out there. Like IDW had it, DC had it, Marvel had it,
Gold Key.
It's easy to get lost, I think, in the mire of books that are out there to really give Star Trek, the DC series, a chance.
And I think the final like added wrinkle to it is the thing that we were talking about, which is they're not canon. Every time they start doing it, a movie comes out that has ignored the comics, or you know, just left hand's not talking to the right hand sort of situation. And they're interesting stories, but you read those Trek ones, you're like, well, that doesn't really count if you go watch Search for Spock. Or you read these cool ones that happen after the destruction of Romulus, and you go like, actually, well, that doesn't count now. Picard season 1 retcon that.
That is
you know, like the Utopia Planitia thing from season 1, that doesn't happen in the comics anymore. You know, like all that stuff. Just we complain about this when people say like, why would I even watch the next Aquaman movie if they're going to reboot the DCU? And you go like, just watch it because you might like the movie. Like, stuff doesn't have to lead into something else to have value. And I know I'm kind of saying the opposite here, but people obviously feel that way about stuff. And I do think not being canon is probably a mark against Star Trek comics,
and it's a huge one, but it's definitely
and a thing that probably takes some people. If people feel that way about like DC movies or about Marvel stuff, like why would I watch this if it's not connected?
I know, but
then I got to imagine that's also true.
The novels don't. I don't think necessarily.
No, but I don't know that the novels are like bestsellers either. You know,
I mean, I do wonder, but yeah, I think they're well regarded at least.
Probably, yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to the next question.
Yeah.
We're leaving Instagram and heading on over to Reddit,
where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
Not even once. First question comes from Alfred is Zaddy.
I mean, Andy Serkis,
depending on the version. Yeah. How would Batman beat the Kobayashi Maru test?
Ooh, Dave. Oh, well, before I throw it to Dave, just the context for people listening at home. The Kobayashi Maru, if you don't know Star Trek, is a test that Starfleet cadets go through. It's a test that you cannot win. It's supposed to be a no-win scenario, and it's supposed to test your composure, the way you handle yourself in these extreme situations. Kirk famously cheats. He reprograms it so he can win. And that's a part of Star Trek lore. But the Kobayashi Maru is essentially like a character test that cadets go through.
Yeah.
So Dave, what do you think Batman's approach would be to the Kobayashi Maru?
I think the only way out that Batman would agree to is sacrificing himself so that his crew could live somehow.
Right.
But how do you beat it? But how do you get there?
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, he is Batman.
Yeah. I mean, it's if we think about the thing that makes Batman special is a sort of like, it's not just that he's prepared. It's not just that he's super well trained. It's that he's creative. It's that, to Dave's point, he'll go the extra step. He's so determined. Like, I wonder if there's just a certain point where the computer's just never encountered the stuff he's throwing at. It's not even necessarily that he can actually win without cheating, but if it's just a thing where it's like, we've never seen the computer have to counter to this, like whatever he did, like he blew up his own deflector dish. I don't know what he's doing, but he's got a plan.
I love that. I think that is a fantastic analysis.
I think that the only other option is that he walks in there, does nothing, and understands already the intention of it, and so just walks out and goes like, yeah, sometimes you have to make sacrifices, and these are the things that need to happen, and like basically just like is 2 steps ahead.
I mean, that sounds chilling. I don't know that they'd give that guy a command.
But I think like he's so just like on top of what the intention behind it is.
Yeah, he walks up to the guy running the machine and says, "I'm Batman."
Yeah, make it harder next time.
Fucking nut taps the guy.
Yeah, could you make it so that when the ship explodes, a bunch of pearls fall?
I need to get there.
I need Alfred.
Yeah.
I was there when 2 ships went down a space alley. And
hell yeah. All right. Yeah, we were going to see a holodeck film, and
yeah, a Klingon chill came out of the
Romulan chill.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right. Now we're leaving Reddit and heading over to the doc scored.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, remember that thing I said in the beginning of this episode?
Hang on.
That thing you could prepare in advance and didn't?
Doc.
Ooh.
Doc scored.
All right, you got me back.
No more doc scored use.
All right, first question from the doc scored.
Yeah.
Comes from Step into the Stump
Chunkman,
who asks, which robot/android in the DC universe would you like to do a Freaky Friday with Data?
Oh, that's fun.
Ooh.
Dave, do you have one that you think would be a fun one?
So that would mean that Data's consciousness goes into another robot, and that robot's consciousness goes into Data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Talking about?
Yeah.
I guess maybe one of the metal men would be cool.
It's so funny. The thing I was literally just thinking was, I'm like, I want it to be the metal man that wants to fuck the guy that created them, and now it's fully functional.
Oh yeah, platinum ends up in Data's body and is fully functional. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Tin.
Sure, that works.
Tin.
Too.
Oh, poor meek Tin.
Because Tin is really meek, and and then to all of a sudden get Data's, intelligence and all of that, because the machine would still work the same way, right? I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. You went a different route than I did. I was going to say Red Tornado because Red Tornado has a human family. And so for Data, he'd have to like spend a day as like the dad of a family. It's like
love that.
It feels like a Trek episode.
Yeah.
That he'd have to learn that. And yeah, Red Tornado without his powers having to like work as a member of a team and stuff like that. I think they each get something out of it. But, yeah, that's interesting.
I love that.
And you wanted Data to be platinum. Yeah, so they could both fuck. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Nice.
All
right. Next question comes from Which Devil Sorcerer, who asks, which Justice Leaguer would commit more war crimes than Cisco in the same position?
Right. So what this is referencing, and who knows, maybe Dave has a hot take on this, but what this is referencing is in DS9, the Maquis, which were Federation citizens who get caught in Cardassian territory when the Federation like cedes territory to the Cardassians, and so they're kind of like freedom fighters in that, and also kind of like terrorists, depending on what side of history you're on. And Cisco has had enough of them, and he goes after them, and he detonates torpedoes in their atmosphere that like disperses this resin through the atmosphere and makes the planet uninhabitable. He gives them like an hour to get off world, and then he does it, which is very obviously a war crime. Which Justice Leaguer would do that?
Hal Jordan.
And also in the Pale Moonlight, doesn't he willingly allow a Romulan to be murdered, or Romulan to be killed, so that we would draw the Romulans into the war?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he allows these sort of clandestine things to happen. If under desperation, Cisco seeks out things that Picard would not.
Right.
Hal Jordan.
I would say it would be I know where your head's at. I don't know if that's true though.
In comparison,
I was going to say Aquaman.
That's what I was going to say. Aquaman.
Sure,
you were going to say
version.
Aquaman too.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. What's your rationale for Aquaman?
Well, I think he takes a much harder line. I mean, he's in that kind of Hawkman.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Kind of thought process. I think where, the safety of Atlantis is supreme, and you war demands things, and you have to do certain things, and no matter how palatable or unpalatable they are. And I think Aquaman would do that.
I agree. My only asterisk on that is that I'd say like modern Aquaman, like the last 6 years of Aquaman, is probably the furthest from that the character's ever been.
But like, what about like Hook Hand? Like
Hook Hand Aquaman. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hook Hand Aquaman and Garrick would be doing like assassinations all through the quadrant. Yeah, interesting. Someone else that would just do what was.
Was the question just Justice League member?
It is, although I would lots of characters have been members of the Justice League. Yeah, if you go by like the Tom King version, Adam Strange, the Strange Adventures book is about Adam Strange essentially committing war crimes. It's like that's what it's about. So that's an obvious answer, I guess.
Yeah.
And he does it for the right reasons. He does it to try and protect his family and stuff, or for the right reasons, heavy quotes.
Good reasons.
I almost said too much. Yeah. But like that's an answer to this for sure.
Yeah.
Anyone else you can think of?
I mean, Hawkman's a good example.
Hawkman, yeah.
Yeah.
I know where your head's at with Hal.
Yeah.
Especially because obviously Hal has the parallax history and stuff like that. He's not like above going too far.
Yes.
you know. But yeah, that's interesting too. Nice. I like that.
All right. Next question comes from the Senator James Paulson.
Hell yeah.
Who asks, each series of Star Trek has its own main ship. Which Justice League member would you put in command of each ship?
Oh my God. Interesting.
I would put Batman in charge of the Defiant.
Oh, hell yeah. It's like tactical, stealthy. I love that.
Great.
I love where your head's at.
I would put Wonder Woman in charge of the Enterprise D.
Sure. Yeah. I think I get that, yeah.
You know, she's a warrior, but I think she's a diplomat and you know,
100%. I agree with
truth
that.
seeker. I think that would be good.
I think Hal or Arthur would get the Enterprise E. A more tactical, more military vessel than the D.
Yeah. What about Voyager? I think Superman for Voyager, because you want the crew to have hope that they're going to get home.
I love that. I think that's great.
And the original Enterprise. Yeah, that's a tough one.
That one's tough. I was going to say you give the Flash the Discovery.
That's what I was going to say.
he's right blink of an eye. He's there.
Also, you can deal with like time travel and shit.
Also, all of that. I always think of the moment in season 1 of Discovery where I think it's the best they've ever shown how that drive could be like practically useful, is where it just keeps dropping in and out of mycelial space around that Klingon ship. Just they can't get a lock on it. It's just going and that's like one of my favorite, I mean, it's from season 1, but it's like one of my favorite kind of uses of that ship. And that, to me, that's the Flash, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great choice.
Who would go
the original
Enterprise?
I mean, maybe that one's Hal. Maybe you give Aquaman the Enterprise E.
It would be fun to see Hal go at it with Spock.
yeah, exactly. Yes, I think that's a good one.
I love that.
I think that's a good pairing. I think that's all the kind of main. I guess we could say like the Titan.
Sure.
I don't know that
Martian Manhunter. Yeah.
I mean, I think at this point that we're just like out of leaguers, as opposed to thinking like someone that would be perfect for it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to the next question.
Sure.
From We've Only Just Dan done again, who asks, in the IDW Star Trek / Green Lantern crossover, they use the replicator to create basic versions of the GL ring. For someone who is unfamiliar, was that a bit of a stretch as far as Trek lore?
Right.
I think so.
Yeah. What in what way?
Well, the replicator's not a wish machine.
Right.
You know, it needs to understand what it's creating. And I don't think from the TNG era, I don't know, like, I mean, the Green Lantern ring seems like it would be an incredibly complex piece of machinery. I mean, how do they even make it? I mean, you know, I don't know that the replicator could do that. But then again, you have somebody like Amazo who can copy its powers, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just seems like and also in the JJ universe, they went a little more magical with things, right? Like the transporter, you can now beam anywhere in the galaxy, and you know, so they took some of the limitations of these things off, and in lieu of I need to get from here to there to the story. So but I don't think the replicator, I don't think it could create a Green Lantern ring.
I also don't think so. Even though it is Kelvin timeline, and you're right, a lot of the guardrails are off in that universe. I mean, I think in Voyager, if a replicator could do something with advanced tech, they would have replicated the Doctor's. The Doctor had that device that came from the future that allowed his mobile emitter that allowed him to walk around the ship. And they were always like, what if it gets damaged? It was like they had no replacement. They could barely figure out how it worked. And I think if their replicators were capable of just scanning a thing and building it, they would have just done it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe by that logic, you're right. It is a stretch to like, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact circumstance of that comic though. Like, I don't know if they like use One Ring to download the specs into the computer. Like, I don't remember what the setup is in the comic, but I'm inclined to agree with Dave that it feels like a little bit of a leap.
Also, does there need to be is the source of the ring's power involved with the creation of the ring?
I mean, good question. I mean, it's referred to as technology.
Yeah.
But what does that mean?
Separate from its source, like how does it know what to connect to? I think that.
Yeah, but like, I don't think you can, replicate a quantum singularity.
Yes, right. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're getting at here.
I mean, you can. I will say the ring is in different, interpretations. The ring is vaguely sentient.
Yeah.
The computer can figure that out because it did it with Moriarty.
Yeah.
It did it with what's his face in the club in DS9.
Yep.
Vinny, whatever his name was.
The singer.
Yeah. Like, that piece of it is somehow more feasible than the actual mechanical technological component of it.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from JK, who asks, what would you say is the closest equivalent to Starfleet in the DCU? It seems like most space organizations in that universe are more focused on policing the known universe, not exploring the unknown.
That is true. Huh.
I guess the United Planets.
You immediately want to say lanterns, but no.
Yeah, no, they're just cops.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think probably the United Planets would be the closest, but again, I don't think that's an organization of expansion and exploration. I think that's a more of a
I'd say it's close in that it's based on a principle of cooperation.
Yes.
That we each have abilities we bring from our own planets that we're using in service of the greater good.
Yeah.
But again, it still comes down to just like it's like a protection thing. It's like a safety thing. It's not an exploration thing. You have small groups like the Challengers of the Unknown or something that it's like that's you're seeking out, exploring and uncovering mysteries and learning the secret math of the universe.
Yeah, but
that's not like a not like a big interplanetary thing. That's like four guys in a mountain,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know what another one. They all tend to be evil, or
Yeah. I mean, I'll put it out there that I actually don't think there is one. The linear men, like people that protect time, it's all about just like stopping shit from happening. Like there's no multi, planetary or multi whatever temporal or whatever you want to call it coalition whose only goal is just to like check stuff out and see what's out there. Like no one in DC has that as a mandate.
Okay, well, this feeds into the next question. So let's answer the last question, which comes from First Mage, who asks, how similar are the United Planets and the United Federation of Planets?
All right. Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit about it. Dave, you had something you wanted to say kind of in this sphere.
I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I don't remember what it was, but
you fucked up.
Oh no!
I can tell you it was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
I bet it would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless this guy didn't fucking start yabbering on.
Pretty sure you're the one that read the question. Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched a little bit on it that they're similar in some ways. They're collaborative. They embrace each other's difference. That's a kind of federation principle. That's a United Planets principle as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have the mission. The United Planets does not have the mission to seek out new life and new civilizations and have them join for the betterment of everyone.
Totally. Absolutely, which is crazy. I mean, yeah, yeah.
I mean, what's it like in the what's it like? I'm not a I don't know a lot about the Legion. Um, what is that? Because they're all from different planets, right?
Yeah, so that's the United Planets. That's the 31st century. That's the United Planets, and the
So has it evolved?
Legionnaires. The Legionnaires represent different worlds, and generally there are exceptions, but generally they're youth, they're younger. They each bring a sort of like native ability, like they're bringing an ability that people on their planet have, and together as a group, their abilities together allow them to solve problems and keep the United Planet safe and stuff like that. They work alongside the science police, so there's also cops and them. Um,
But the United Planets hasn't changed in that in that era. It's still pretty much the same
yeah, it's
kind of body.
it's just it's pretty much just it's similar to the Federation in like the way it's composed. Like the planets don't surrender their autonomy necessarily. They have individual planetary governments, but they also are part of this like bigger collective. In a way, the science police do a little bit of what Starfleet does on the sort of security side of things. Um, yeah, I mean it's tricky, and I mean I think you as a Trek fan could probably also you probably also feel this. Starfleet as a principle is amazing, but it's like full of contradictions, and I think largely they're born out of the fact that like we I think probably just have a hard time imagining such a society.
Yeah.
But the idea that like for example the Enterprise D, it's a massive ship that has families on it, and like they hold galas, and it's a diplomatic vessel. There's schools and stuff, but it's also the most advanced, most heavily armed ship in the fleet. So they're always sending it to the fucking neutral zone. Like, so it's like take all of these families and children and put them right in front of a Romulan. Like there's always this sort of tension with Starfleet, and then it's weird when they just build like fighters or warcraft. Like that doesn't feel like Starfleet. But also, shouldn't we have dedicated vessels for one thing and not the other?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's
But I think inherently, like if you're going to do like peacekeeping and like bringing people together and things like that, you're going to find tension, and so you need to defend those.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying the ship should have no weapons, but it's funny to me that it's the Enterprise isn't like we've got a modest complement and we'll get out of there and get help because we have all these families on board. It's like the Borg are attacking, send the Enterprise,
sure,
like in.
Yeah. That's the thing about Roddenberry, though. Fucking serious, like the constant optimist, like who just like could see the best of
but
people.
He had, I mean, here's the closest thing I can say. The United Planets has the science police, where absolutely like an authority, like a military, paramilitary sort of organization. And there's those Marines that are in Enterprise, and they're in Star Trek V, and they're referenced in Star Trek Beyond, from as being like a precursor to the more peaceful Starfleet. I can't remember what they're called, but
the Makos.
The Makos, thank you. That is probably the closest relationship, but the science police are significantly more like police and less like Marines. But
ASAB.
All Starfleets are
scientists.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I truly cannot think of any organization in DC that lives up to the rather grandiose mandate of Starfleet of being explorers and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. On that note, and since that was the last question, Dave, if you had to pitch to people listening to this that maybe are passingly familiar with Star Trek, or they hear that there's all these kind of like newer era of shows or whatever, what would you say to them to convince someone to get into Star Trek? What is the thing about Star Trek that makes you love it?
It checks a lot of boxes for me in that I love science fiction. I love those fantasy worlds, but it's also it's an ideal of hope. It's an ideal of, hey, we're going to make it out of this hole, and we're going to, become united and look at the bigger picture, and we're going to help each other. And um, they're really nice sentiments,
Yeah.
that go along with it. And of course, there's action. It's not, I know it's not Star Wars, so don't expect that. But yeah, you have these crews that represent the best of humanity at the time, and they're, going out and getting into shit.
Yeah. Also, have you seen the episode of Teen Titans Go where they go on a space adventure and all of them except for Robin want to go on a Star Wars space adventure, and Robin wants to go on a Star Trek one, and they keep fighting back and forth?
No, I haven't. That's awesome. I got to look that up.
Doesn't he have a flute experience?
He has an inner light experience,
Yeah.
but it's a trombone.
Yes.
Which is a little
double.
As a little wink. And then he fights Darkseid, but he fights him by like going to City Hall to petition against whatever his plan is. Like that's his Star Trek adventure.
Love that.
That's great.
Yeah, it's quite good.
And have you guys been watching Lower Decks?
We love Lower
Yes,
Decks,
although I
yeah.
haven't seen season 3. I've got
Really?
I'm behind. I got to catch up and watch that.
It's great. I'm a huge fan. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
really,
love it.
really fun.
Do you know what I love, especially as a father, is Prodigy.
Yeah.
Really?
Star Trek Prodigy is so much fun. It looks great. Like the animation's amazing. It's cool to get Janeway in there. Like it's a really good era for Trek. And I know it's not to everyone's taste. Everyone's got their own Trek that they love or whatever. But like really, I don't know how you can complain about the fact that there are like 5 new Trek shows in the last
truly
4 years.
insane that we have so much Trek right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
that's something that never changes about Star Trek, is that a new show comes on and they're suddenly, detractors, and then another one comes on and there are detractors, and another one. There's just it's you got your thing, enjoy it, But this Trek is somebody's Trek. Let it go, man. Let people enjoy it.
I mean, not to drag this out too much, but just because you were such a big part of Enterprise, do you feel like the fans have come around on it? Like I feel colloquially like people are a lot warmer on Enterprise, who at the time they were like, I can't believe this fucking show. Like,
well, yeah, that right. And the show got canceled after 4 seasons instead of running its normal 7. But now it has turned around. When I talk to people about Enterprise now, they're like, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
there were some really nice episodes in there, and so I guess time is the lens we should look at through.
totally. And to totally deflate all of the sincerity out of this, I'll say, Dave, you've earned your spot on this podcast because Enterprise is by far the horniest Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean, that decontamination gel they always got to rub on each other.
That's the first one, the pilot episode.
Yeah, baby.
Now I
strap in.
Yeah, I can't wait for the theme park ride on that.
I can't say anything.
Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to talk Trek at DC with us.
2 of my favorite things with 2 of my favorite people.
Oh, it's so sweet. Dave, is there anything that you would like to plug or let the people know about or promote?
No, I'm available on Twitter, but I don't know for how much longer. So
Fair.
I don't even know that I want to give the name out. I mean, it's, Twitter's bugging out, and I think I'm going to bug out on them.
Fair.
That's very fair. I think it's run its course.
Tell Dashel we said what's up.
Yeah.
I will.
Who, by the way, should not be listening to
No,
this
God,
episode.
no. Yeah. Absolutely. Very bad. What is he,
Slowly
like 30
getting
now?
closer, though. Slowly getting closer.
Yeah, is he like a full adult now? We've been doing this show for so long. Oh my God, that's a possibility. Oh no.
He's not driving yet.
Thank God.
Oh God.
Jesus.
God, you just really freaked me out there.
You're like, wait, could he be?
It's like, oh no. He's a commercial pilot.
Yeah.
He's
All right.
How old are we? Oh my God, this is Trek.
We got inner lighted.
Yeah.
We've lived a whole life inside this podcast.
All right.
Thank
The
you.
only skill we have when we come out is podcasting.
Oh God, that's what we came in with.
Oh no.
We would love to hear from you, residents. If you want to send in a question for next week's episode.
Next week, we're going to have a friend on, a different friend, I
Yes.
should say, a comedian, and we're diving back into Final Crisis. We're doing another Final Crisis episode next week, so send your questions for that.
Yeah, and if you have specific, very opinionated thoughts on it, you'll be quite in line with this guest.
Yeah. Hey. I love controversy.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
No. Well, you can send in questions for that episode through our Facebook,
Dr. DC Podcast.
our Twitter,
At Dr. DC.
our Instagram,
Dr. DC Podcast.
our email.
DrDCPodcast@gmail.com.
You can jump on that subreddit.
r/Dr_DC.
The doc phone is always open.
208-917-3238.
Even though I literally never pull from it, and I think we get sent them all the time. But that's 208
Good plug.
917 DCEU.
If you're nasty.
We're on TikTok.
At Dr. DC. Mostly there to lurk.
Yeah. But if you like have some content that we might want to look at, then
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
us know.
Gee, have you been yeah.
Are you chopping wood somewhere?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my content is wood chopping related. Yeah.
Are you a big boy? We need a big boy.
Jeez Louise.
Also, you can go to our website.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, our Craigslist. We're
looking big boy.
yeah,
we need a big boy.
we wanted another host for the show, and I put up we're looking for a third, and I got a lot of weird responses.
Weird. I wrote I needed a unicorn. I don't know what that meant, but we've got a website, drdcpodcast.com.ca. You can give us a 5-star review, and if you do, we will read it on a future episode of the show, as long as it's on Apple Podcast or Facebook. Otherwise, you don't have to take a screenshot and send it over to us.
That's right.
If you want to spend a few gold
pressed latinum.
yeah, then you can subscribe to our Patreon.
Yeah, Dr. DC. Sorry, patreon.com/DrDC. There's a $1, $5, $7 level. They all give you access to the Discord, our awesome fan community.
Mm-hmm.
The higher levels, you get bonus episodes, theme pools, all sorts of fun stuff. The Golden Age patrons, the $7 tier.
Golden showered patron.
This week, the first episode of a new limited series drops, a bonus episode, Toretto Talks, where me and my sister are going through every Fast and Furious movie in anticipation of Fast X.
That's right.
So there's all sorts of fun stuff over there, and it helps to support us.
Also, if you want to get on the the cool club and like join the populace, then subscribe to our other podcast.
Yeah, Ghostfacers, a Supernatural rewatch. We just this week finished season 6, baby.
If you like
We're
Star
going
Trek,
through every single episode of CW Supernatural. If you like Trek, if you like comic books, you'll probably like some of the high concept stuff that's going on over on Supernatural.
some real metatextual bullshit on there.
100%.
Well, that is it for this week. Dave, say goodbye.
Goodbye. I guess live long and prosper should have been
Super heroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.